I think the first two movies, the problem that I had was that the planning, the scheming, all the conniving, like it was honestly too movie-like in a sense. And then with this,
Goofy.
yeah, goofy, just a little too cartoonish for me. And then in this one, everything that happened just kind of made a lot more sense. It flowed better.
But it also might flow better for you because it's way easier to understand what they're saying.
I really don't think so. Like you know what? I won't take that away from the fact, because I know for the first two episodes of this trilogy that we've done, I've had a problem with the dialogue or whatever. Maybe there is something to be said by the fact that now that we're on the third movie, I kind of understand what they're going for. But I just don't think it just sounded way clear.
I agree. And even some scenes you didn't realize it was ADR. Like I feel like it matched up perfectly. Where you're like, did they record that on set? They said they don't, but it looked good enough that it seemed like they recorded it on set. The lips matched up pretty well.
It was good, and it just wasn't as corny as the first two have been to me. I felt like the standoff scenes in the first two movies were just really throwing me off because, like I said on the first episode, was like you don't want to like overuse the standoff. The typical Mexican standoff where they're just looking at each other. They have the gun, like who's gonna go first. Like they did it way too many times in the first two, and in this one, I think there was only like one.
Two. I think there's one in the beginning. There's some type of standoff in the beginning.
Okay. But what you know what I'm saying.
3-hour movie, it's hard to remember all the scenes.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, they made them count. And
they were more impactful.
Yeah, exactly. More impactful. That's what I'm going for. And so I just appreciated that. Like I felt those standoff scenes, they weren't as corny. And that made it just a lot more serious. And,
I do agree with Scott. I think it was goofier, but doesn't ruin it for me. I kind of like the goofiness because it's almost like they're almost making his cigar a joke. Because like in the first two, he's like sleeps with the cigar. It's like his iconic piece.
Yeah, they're making fun of themselves, kinda.
Yeah,
I don't think I think they're aware of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think I appreciate the more self-awareness in this movie.
Yeah, there's that self-awareness with the cigar as the guys walk in once the Ugly's trying to catch Blondie, he's seeing his cigars and it's like he's able to track him based on his cigars. Like that's his one like little piece he leaves behind. That's kind of funny. The cigars, he's like looking for it.
Yeah.
Even there's like an entrance where Clint Eastwood comes around a corner and he blows smoke out before he enters. So it's like, it's him before he gets out there. The smoke blows. You're like, oh, there he is.
Or even he's in the middle of a major Civil War battle and he's still got a cigar in his mouth, puffing on it while he's like carrying around dynamite, explosives. Like it is a little bit more comical. So, damn. I guess with that being said, I guess I kind of agree with Scott.
Talk yourself into it.
But I don't know. I also thought like just more of the one-on-one scenes were a lot more brutal and a lot more realistic. And I guess maybe that's what took me out of the first two movies is because I didn't know what to expect. And I think based on the movies that we see now, they do a really good job of from the get-go, like kind of showing us the mood of, listen, like this is something that is like serious or it's not. And I thought the first two movies, now that I'm really thinking about it, it seemed like they were just trying to take themselves way too serious. And in this one, they knew how the characters were and they knew the flow that they were going for. So they weren't like trying to overdo it. And so I think I just appreciate the fact that like they finally just like probably came around the table one time and was like, you know what? Like, this is the movie. Like, this makes sense.
There's some, too, though. You have to think about the time. A lot of action sequences, like from the first two movies, they're not as good because the action's not believable from what we've seen today. Like, the last episode we watched was Indiana Jones last week. And so, the one criticism I had that I didn't really give it a criticism is because the fight scenes weren't as good because just the time and us used to seeing John Wick type movies, you know, you can't match that. So like watching Indiana Jones fight or watching these guys fight, and it's not really that believable like a good fist fight. It's like punch, pause, wait to get hit, get hit again. It's corny, it's cheesy, but that's just the time of how they do these action movies. But in this movie, because they have a bigger budget, you're seeing big ass explosions, cannons, bunch of soldiers running out there in the field. So it feels more real. So you kind of aren't taken out of it with the fake fight scenes.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, kind of back to the Civil War thing, what you just brought up. I thought, especially in the second movie, I mean, this was like my biggest argument with it was that it was centered around like this big bank robbery, and that this bank was just like damn near impossible to crack. And we had our disagreements on it.
Yes.
But overall, my problem with it was that it was just a big lead up to something that just didn't take that long. And I feel like they corrected it perfectly in this movie.
Yeah.
Just in the sense that they are in the midst of the Civil War of the United States. That's a huge deal. That's a huge obstacle to overcome. And they don't do it in one cartoonish explosion.
Yeah.
Although you might think that when you watch it. No, they were prisoners of war, I think 3 times leading up to that point.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they
So,
got captured. They got captured at least twice.
Yeah, so you get to see the characters like kind of go through the ropes. And no matter how they get out of it, as kind of silly as it could be, it's also, to me, which is important, possible. Like, it makes sense that they were able to get out. They're using fake names. They're, you know, kind of blackmailing some of the antagonists, like telling them like, oh, well, we actually know a little bit something about it. It's like, you know what? That could work at the point, you know, because they're after $200,000. That's a lot of money. You can't just throw that number out there and expect to not be taken serious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. This movie just made more sense.